They say strength is measured by how much you can endure, how long you can stand without breaking. But what if that idea quietly turns pain into proof of worth? What if survival begins to disguise itself as strength, and no one questions it? There is a silent pattern where exhaustion is praised, where emotional hunger is mistaken for resilience, where you learn to carry everything and call it growth. But what does it cost? And who taught you that enduring everything is the same as being strong? Tonight, this quiet confusion will be gently unfolded. There are truths hidden beneath the habits you learned to survive silently. Let's begin. There is a moment, often quiet and almost unnoticeable, where something inside you begins to question the life you've been carrying. It doesn't arrive as a breakdown. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It feels more like a slow heaviness, like a weight that no longer shifts no matter how strong you try to be. You've been told, in subtle and direct ways, that your ability to endure is something to be proud of. That holding everything together, even when you're falling apart inside, is proof of resilience. And for a long time, you believed it. You adapted. You carried more. You stayed silent. You survived. But lately, something feels different. The same strength that once felt empowering now feels exhausting. The same independence that once made you feel capable now feels isolating. And the same emotional control that once protected you now feels like distance, from others and from yourself. You begin to wonder, quietly, why does being strong feel so heavy? There is a subtle grief in this realization, because what you once admired about yourself starts to feel like something else entirely. Not strength, but strain. Not resilience, but repetition. A cycle where you keep enduring, but never truly arriving anywhere softer. And still, a part of you resists this thought, because if this isn't strength, then what is it? What do you call a life where you're always coping, always adjusting, always holding things together without ever feeling held? What do you call the version of yourself that learned to survive so well, it forgot how to rest? There is no clear answer at first, only a growing awareness that something is misaligned. You notice it in small moments, when rest feels uncomfortable instead of relieving, when silence feels unfamiliar, when ease feels almost undeserved, as if your body has forgotten how to exist without tension. And maybe, beneath it all, there is a quiet question forming, one that feels both fragile and dangerous to ask. What if this isn't strength at all? What if it's something you were forced to become, and never given the chance to question? Long before you ever called yourself strong, there were moments that shaped what strength meant to you. Not through words alone, but through experiences, through what was present, and what was missing. Maybe it was an environment where emotions were too much, too inconvenient, or simply ignored, where being easy made things smoother, and needing less made you more acceptable. You learned, slowly, that expressing pain didn't bring comfort. It brought silence, or distance, or consequences you didn't understand. So you adjusted. You became quieter with your needs, stronger with your tolerance, more skilled at holding things in than letting them out. Not because you wanted to, but because it worked. Or maybe it wasn't silence, but instability. A world that shifted without warning, where safety was unpredictable and consistency felt temporary. In those spaces, you didn't have the luxury of softness. You had to adapt quickly, stay alert, stay composed, stay ready. And somewhere along the way, survival stopped feeling like a response and started feeling like identity. You weren't just someone who endured difficult moments. You became the one who always could. People may have even praised it, called you mature, responsible, independent, strong. Words that felt validating at the time. Words that made the weight feel meaningful. But what those words often missed was the cost. Because no one paused to ask what it took for you to become that way. No one questioned why you had to grow up emotionally faster than you should have. Or why your ability to carry so much became something to admire instead of something to understand. And so, the pattern deepened. You learned that your worth was tied to how much you could handle. That being dependable mattered more than being supported. That strength meant not needing anyone, even when a part of you quietly did. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was conditioning, repetition, a series of emotional lessons absorbed over time. And now, as you look back, there may be a strange realization forming, that what once protected you also shaped you, not into who you freely chose to be, but into who you had to become to feel safe. And maybe, for the first time, you begin to see that your strength didn't begin as strength at all. It began as survival. What feels like strength is often something much deeper, something biological. The human mind is not designed to chase happiness first. It is designed to ensure survival. And when your environment repeatedly signals stress, unpredictability, or emotional risk, your brain begins to adapt in ways that are quiet but powerful. It shifts into a different mode. In this state, your nervous system becomes more alert, more focused on control, on anticipation, on minimizing harm. You become skilled at reading situations quickly, sensing tension before it fully appears, adjusting your behavior to keep things stable. From the outside, it looks like strength, but internally, it is vigilance. Your body learns to stay prepared, even when there is no immediate danger. Your thoughts become structured around problem-solving, not presence. Your emotions become filtered, reduced, sometimes even silenced. Not because they don't exist, but because expressing them once felt unsafe. Over time, this becomes normal. You don't notice the constant tension in your shoulders, the way your mind rarely rests, the subtle unease in moments that are supposed to feel calm, because this is the state you've adapted to. This is what functioning has come to mean. And here's where the confusion deepens. Because survival mode is efficient. It helps you handle pressure. It makes you reliable. It teaches you to endure discomfort without breaking. It builds a version of you that can manage almost anything. But it does not teach you how to feel safe. It does not teach you how to receive or to rest or to trust that things can exist without constant effort. Keeps you moving, but rarely allows you to arrive. And so, you begin to associate this constant state of readiness with who you are, with your identity, with your strength. But what if this strength is simply your nervous system doing its job, over and over again? What if the exhaustion you feel isn't weakness, but the natural result of being in survival mode for too long? There is nothing wrong with how your mind adapted. It did exactly what it needed to do. But adaptation is not the same as alignment. And perhaps, beneath all the functionality, there is a quiet part of you that has never truly experienced what it means to feel at ease. There is a quiet tension that begins to grow once you start seeing the difference between survival and strength. It doesn't feel like clarity at first. It feels like contradiction. Part of you longs for rest. Not just physical rest, but emotional stillness. A space where you don't have to hold everything together, where nothing depends on your constant awareness, where you can simply exist without bracing for impact. But another part of you resists, because letting go of survival doesn't feel safe. It feels unfamiliar, almost risky. You've spent so long being the one who manages, who anticipates, who carries, that the idea of not doing those things creates a subtle anxiety. As if something might fall apart the moment you stop holding it. And maybe, deeper than that, there is a question that feels harder to face. Who are you without the struggle? If your identity has been built around endurance, around being the one who can handle everything, then what happens when you no longer need to prove that? What remains when the constant tension begins to loosen? There can be guilt in this space. Guilt for wanting less weight. Guilt for craving ease when you've been taught that effort defines value. Can feel undeserved, almost selfish, to imagine a life that isn't built on constant resilience. And so, the cycle continues. You begin to recognize the pattern, but you don't fully step out of it. You question the weight, but you still carry it. You feel the exhaustion, but you push through it. Because that's what you've always done. There is also fear. Not loud, obvious fear, but a quiet uncertainty. The kind that whispers, if you stop being this version of yourself, will you still be needed? Will you still be valued? Because survival doesn't just protect you from pain. It also gives you a role. And letting go of that role can feel like losing something, even if that something has been heavy all along. This is the space where many people remain for a long time, a space between awareness and change, between knowing something is misaligned and not yet feeling safe enough to release it. It's not a failure. It's a reflection of how deeply survival has shaped you and how carefully the mind holds onto what once kept it safe. At some point, the tension between endurance and exhaustion becomes too clear to ignore. It doesn't arrive as a dramatic breakthrough. It feels quieter than that, almost like a soft shift in perception, where something you once admired no longer feels admirable in the same way. You begin to see your strength differently, not as something empowering, but as something that has been quietly costing you. The constant holding, the endless adapting, the way you've learned to move through life without ever fully arriving in it. And there is a moment, small but significant, where you stop glorifying the struggle. You start noticing how often you are tired, even when nothing obvious is wrong. How rest doesn't feel restful because your mind is still scanning, still preparing. How moments of calm feel unfamiliar, as if something is missing. And slowly, a truth begins to surface. That survival was never meant to be permanent. It was a response, a phase, a way to get through something, not a way to live everything. This realization can feel unsettling, because if survival is no longer necessary in the same way, then why does your body still act like it is? Why does your mind still cling to patterns that no longer match your present reality? The answer is not simple, but it is gentle, because your system learned these patterns through repetition, not intention. It learned them through experience, not choice, and it continues them not because you are weak, but because it has not yet learned anything different. There is no shame in that, only awareness, and awareness begins to create space. Space between the reaction and the reality. Space between who you had to be and who you might be allowed to become. For the first time, you may find yourself asking a different kind of question. Not, how much more can I handle? But, why do I keep needing to handle so much? And in that question, something begins to soften, because you are no longer proving your strength. You are beginning to understand it. Letting go of survival does not feel like relief at first. It feels like exposure. For so long, your strength has been built on staying guarded, staying prepared, staying in control. It has been a kind of armor, quiet, invisible, but always present. And now, as you begin to loosen that armor, there is a strange discomfort that follows. Because what once protected you also defined you. Without it, everything feels unfamiliar. Rest feels undeserved. Slowness feels unproductive. Receiving support feels uncomfortable, even when it is genuine. There is a subtle urge to return to what you know, to the tension, the independence, the constant readiness, because it feels predictable. Even if it is exhausting, this is the paradox of unlearning. You are not just releasing habits. You are releasing a version of yourself that was built around those habits. A version that knew how to survive, how to adapt, how to carry, but never truly learned how to exist without pressure. And so, the process is not linear. There are moments where you allow yourself to soften, to pause, to feel something without immediately managing it. And then, just as quickly, there are moments where you retreat, where you pick the armor back up without realizing it, because something inside you still equates vigilance with safety. There is no failure in this, only repetition meeting awareness. Your system is learning something new, slowly, carefully. It is being introduced to the idea that not every moment requires defense, that not every silence hides danger, that not every connection demands self-sacrifice. But learning safety can feel just as intense as surviving danger, because it requires trust. Trust in moments that feel unfamiliar. Trust in people, in stillness, in yourself. And trust is not something that appears instantly. It is something that builds quietly, through small experiences that challenge what you once believed. You begin to notice these moments. A conversation where you don't overthink every word. Pause where nothing goes wrong. A space where you are not needed, and yet you are still allowed to exist within it. These moments may feel small, but they are significant, because they are showing you something your survival never could. that strength does not have to come from tension, and that you are allowed to exist without constantly proving it. There is a version of strength that rarely gets recognized. It does not look like endurance. It does not ask how much you can carry or how long you can keep going without breaking. It is quieter than that, softer, almost invisible to the world that taught you otherwise. But it is real. It begins in the moments where you no longer rush to hold everything together, where you allow something to be incomplete, unresolved, or simply uncertain, without immediately trying to fix it. It shows itself when you pause, not because you've earned rest, but because you realize you don't need to earn it at all. This kind of strength does not come from tension. It comes from presence, from allowing yourself to feel what is there, without minimizing it or pushing it away. From existing in a moment without scanning it for what could go wrong. From trusting that not everything requires your constant involvement. And at first, this can feel unfamiliar, because there is no urgency here, no pressure, no need to prove anything, just space. Space to exist without performing resilience. Space to feel without immediately managing those feelings. Space to be, without turning it into something productive or necessary. There is a quiet courage in that. To sit with yourself without distraction. To allow stillness without interpreting it as emptiness. To experience calm without waiting for it to disappear. It may not look like strength in the way you were taught, but it is, because it requires you to face something survival never allowed you to face. Yourself, without the armor. And in that space, something begins to shift. You start to realize that your worth was never in how much you could endure. It was never in how well you could carry everything alone. It was always there, beneath the patterns, beneath the tension, beneath the version of you that learned to survive at all costs. This realization does not erase what you've been through, but it changes how you hold it. It allows your past to exist without defining your present. It allows your strength to exist without being tied to suffering. And slowly, gently, you begin to experience something different. Not survival, but life. If something in this reflection felt familiar, if a quiet part of you recognized itself in these patterns of carrying, enduring, and staying strong in ways that felt heavy, then perhaps this was never about weakness. Perhaps it was about learning too early that survival was the only way to feel safe. And if that realization feels unsettling, or even a little tender, it is not something that needs to be rushed or resolved. It is simply something to notice, because you are not alone in this experience. There are many who have learned to move through life this way, who have built identities around resilience, around independence, around being the one who can handle everything, while quietly carrying more than they ever speak about. And maybe, just maybe, there is space now to see that differently. If you'd like to stay connected to reflections like this, quiet explorations of the inner world, the patterns we carry, and the truths we rarely speak, this space will remain here for you. And if you feel comfortable, you're welcome to share your thoughts below. Not because you have to, but because sometimes putting words to something unspoken can help someone else feel a little less alone. Or it can simply remain yours. Take care of yourself. You deserve gentleness.